free. Holiness is Christ in me. Where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. So teach my soul to rise to you. When temptation comes my way, and when I cannot stand, I'll fall on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. In every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Good morning, it's Pastor Big Al. I have my Bible and I have my cup of coffee. It is Tuesday, December 3rd, and I want to spend a little time in God's Word today. You just heard a video. It was my son singing the special on Sunday morning. I tried to upload my sermon from Sunday morning, but I cut my head off in the video, and that just would not have turned out very well. But I want to share with you what we did on Sunday, because Sunday was the first Sunday of Advent, or the Christmas season. We are on our way to Christmas, 4 weeks till Christmas. And so Sunday was the first Sunday of Advent. So we decorated the church. We had the greenery up along the sides of the sanctuary with lights on it. We had our Christmas tree. And members of the church, they brought family ornaments, and everybody got to put an ornament up on the Christmas tree. And so that was a special time. You see there were some poinsettias that were put up in front of the cross. And then there's the nativity scene that was put up. And this is important for us to realize, because this is the real meaning of Christmas. And so we got to put up the nativity scene. And then you'll notice we have our Advent wreath. And in our Advent wreath, we lit the first candle. That first candle of Advent is the candle of hope, because hope is like a light shining in a dark place. Well, my message for Sunday morning comes from the Gospel of Luke. Luke chapter 1, because we're going to tell the story of Christmas. And the story of Christmas goes way back, goes back before even Mary and Joseph. It goes to a priest by the name of Zacharias. So it's Luke chapter 1, starting with verse 5. It says, "There was in the days of Herod, the king of Judea, a certain priest named Zacharias of the division of Abijah. His wife was of the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. And they were both righteous before God, walking in the commandments and ordinances of the Lord, blameless. But they had no child, because Elizabeth was barren, and they were both well advanced in years." I want to stop there, and I want to share with you that the beginning of the story of Christmas is the time of hopelessness. Our world was in a hopeless situation. Rome was the power and the authority that governed the whole world. And the nation of Israel was at a time of hopelessness, because Rome had appointed Herod as king of Judea. And Herod the Great was very ruthless. He would kill 3 of his own sons in order to maintain power. And so the nation of Israel was in a hopeless situation. But sometimes we don't even think about the hopelessness of our world. We don't think about the hopelessness of our nation, because all of us ourselves are going through a hopeless situation or a tough situation, a situation where we don't see any answers to that situation. And the story of Zacharias and Elizabeth, these two are really in a tough situation because Elizabeth is barren. They have no children. And what makes matters worse or more hopeless is that they are well advanced in years. Now, things are going to start looking up for Zacharias and Elizabeth. And I say that because Zacharias, his division, the division of Abijah, it was their turn to minister before the Lord in Jerusalem. Now, this wasn't that big of a deal because it happened twice a year. But what was a big deal was that Zacharias was chosen by Lot to burn incense before the Lord. Now, this was a very rare opportunity. It was so rare that there's 5 people or 5 priests who ministered in the holy place during that week. These 5 ministers, their responsibility was to maintain the oil in the lamp that was burning. They had to keep the lamp burning from evening till morning every day. So they filled it up with oil and they trimmed the wicks and things of that nature. So they had to make sure that the lamp kept burning. But after they tended the lamp, 4 of the priests would leave the holy place and 1 priest would be left in order to burn incense before the Lord. The golden altar of incense was the closest thing to the most holy place, the closest thing to the very presence of God. The only thing that separated Zacharias from the very presence of God was a curtain. And as he burned the incense, the smoke would rise up and go over the curtain into the holy place. And that smoke represented the prayers of all the people, all the saints. And Zacharias was not going to take this opportunity of a lifetime for granted. It's there that Zacharias begins to offer his own prayers of hopelessness. When he was very hopeless in a hopeless situation, he offers the prayers to God right there in the very presence of the Lord. So I want you to think about, what would you do if you were that close to the presence of God? The only thing that separated you was a curtain. What prayer would you pray? What hopeless situation do you find yourself in that if God doesn't intervene, it's not going to end well? What would you pray? Well, the good news is, as we keep reading, we find out some very amazing things. Verse 11 says, "Then an angel of the Lord appeared to him, standing on the right side of the altar of incense. And when Zacharias saw him, he was troubled, and fear fell upon him. But the angel said to him, 'Do not be afraid, Zacharias, for your prayer is heard, and your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you shall call his name John.'" This is amazing. How would you feel if an angel of the Lord told you that your prayer was heard? Your prayer was heard. And I want to encourage you today, if you find yourself in a very difficult or even a hopeless situation, I want you to call out to God. I want you to bring your prayer before the Lord. But I want to encourage you that God hears your prayer. God hears your prayer. The prayer that Zacharias prayed, like I said, it was a hopeless prayer. It was so hopeless that actually Zacharias didn't really believe the angel when he told him that his prayer had been heard. And because he didn't believe the angel, he wasn't able to speak. He was not able to speak. He was struck with this muteness, and he wasn't able to speak. But turns out the angel was right. Elizabeth is now going to have a child, and she has that child. In verse 59, we're going to pick up reading in Luke chapter 1. And here's what it says. It says, "So it was on the 8th day that they came to circumcise the child. And they would have called him by the name of his father, Zacharias. His mother answered and said, 'No, he shall be called John.' But they said to her, 'There is no one among your relatives who is called by this name.' And so they made signs to his father what he would have him called. And he asked for a writing tablet and wrote, saying, 'His name is John.' And so they all marveled." That is encouraging words, because the naming of a child was a huge thing. It was a very big thing in those days. As I mentioned on Sunday, the name Zacharias means Yahweh remembers. The name Elizabeth, it means my God is an oath. And so if you put those two together, you'd get this idea that Yahweh remembers the oath. Yahweh, God, the Lord, remembers the oath that he made. But to call him John, John was a very special name. The name John means Yahweh is gracious. Yahweh is gracious. You see, that's the real story of Christmas. Christmas is not about talking snowmen or flying reindeers or jolly old man named Saint Nick. The story of Christmas is about God being gracious to us. Even in our hopeless situation, God hears our prayers and he's gracious to us. I thank you for spending some time in God's Word with me today. I pray that you guys have an amazing day. Blessings.